Go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, great. Thanks for the introduction, Peter, and thanks, Ihan and Ashokan, for having me here today at Mother's Earth Toastmasters. So as Peter was saying, I run a small volunteer group called Sixth Sense, where we spend time befriending children in two-room public rental scheme flats of Kabun Baru, which is near to Ang Mo Kio itself. So we have been around for about a year plus and regularly engage the same group of children, mostly aged below 12 years of age. What we do is called volunteering because I and my volunteers, give our time to the children, but actually we receive a lot in return. It's always a joy visiting them, and we end up receiving a lot of love, food, and only losing sweat when I'm with them. Hence, I always question the conventional notion of what volunteering is and who is giving to who and who is actually receiving in reality. For us, whenever we meet, twice a month, we usually take the to nearby parks such as Ang Mo Kio Bishan Park or Thompson Nature Park, Lower Seletar Reservoir, Kranji Wetlands, places which are close by, and is in contrast to the environment that they are in. Because we believe that, when the children are outside of their main environment, it actually gives them a joy of being vulnerable to a new space. When they're actually out there, they are not usually brought to such places because their parents, would not bring them, or they're busy, or would not let them venture on their own. So it's good that the befrienders like us exist in this community, just to give that opportunity to both us and them to just build that trust. So it's always amazing to see children quieten down significantly when they're in a nature environment, feeling the leaves and the branches, looking out for the animals. In this environment, they're told not to litter, pluck leaves, and be sensitive, because that's what the guide is telling us, instructing them to be. So this is a new environment for them. So initially, of course, they do not know how the being should be. So the rules of this environment are fairly clear as compared to the void deck space of their blocks where they live. And following the same rules actually do not really make a lot of sense in this void deck, because it's always very dirty, it's vandalized, it's a lot of graffiti, and generally the feeling is that it's quite uncared for. So there's a huge contrast when you bring them to an external environment where you're exposing them to this idea that they can be. There are various ways, or the various ways in which the environment can look like. So what we actually learn is that there's to a great deal the children are able to follow these and behave in that way, which is appreciative and sensitive to this nature environment. And then we learn that it's the children themselves are quite caring and have the ability to keep the place clean, but it's actually the place around them that maybe doesn't facilitate that as much. In Sixth Sense, we emphasize a lot about free play with materials that are commonly available in the neighborhood. The advantage of living in a rental flat where people are throwing away a lot of things each day, and hence these things can be adapted out. We're essentially coming in to form a relationship, to teach and to facilitate a relationship with how the children should feel about all these things around them. Do they consider them as a rubbish or consider them as a tool? So I think that's a key thing that we're trying to engage them with. So we find various things such as yellow helmets used in construction, which we clean, and they reuse for like Bob the Builder kind of performances for the kids, or strewn cardboard boxes, which are retaught by the child, as something which they can consider their own home, and then some children actually use that as an ice cream selling place as well. So our end message is always that play should be free and should be accessible and does not need to be defined but experienced. So we usually, as we said, there are two Saturdays each month. As a group, because we are here for the longer term and to sustain ourselves, we decided to, space ourselves. But of course, it is ideal that the group is there for longer term, and actually it's even better if they're there every day, like Lynn Shuin's Let's Go Play Outside in Boon Lay, or South Central FSC's Void Deck Hangout area in Langkok Baru, or Elsa's Tuition Center in Yishun. Because that's a kind of attention, that's a kind of safe space that any child needs, growing up. So a safe space where they can actually ask questions anytime, because sometimes their parents or adult figure isn't really there, and to interact with other children as well, because the parents usually keep them within their homes because they consider the other children in the neighborhood as a bad influence. So sometimes poverty is quite intergenerational, and parents project their own experiences growing up onto their own children to protect them. So it's like a protective vibe that the parents are, projecting on their children. And of course, to look at the idea of food and nutrition, to look at physical activities, learning stimulation, that, if left on their own, they would not receive as adequately. So, and that's one key reason why community interventions are necessary, because in this social setting, because of a lack of external support, things will fall through the cracks, like test scores of children, or not getting enough nutrition, or the environment, the children that they are in may not be as protective. But of course, this is not reflective of all families. Some families are, of course, very caring as well, they spend time with each other. And more importantly, as adults of the family, they know that, what takes them off. They know how to emotionally regulate themselves and maintain a sense of harmony with the built physical and emotional environment around them. So some parents are able to, exhibit the kind of behavior because they kind of know themselves very well as a person. But more often than not, parents are quite time poor because they are stuck behind the administrative burden because of learning costs, spending time and effort figuring out what the various kind of aids that are available, what are the eligibility criteria and conditions. And sometimes, it's very easy to get lost. And there's also compliance cost. If you go and apply for like ComCare assistance, which is, financial assistance delivered by social service office, they have to go in with bank statements, CPF statements, birth certificates, prison records, a whole list of countless documents. It's not uncommon to find some families with a docket where they have all these different documents all, very neatly put together, and then they're just updating it periodically. And then there's, of course, psychological costs, lastly, where, the whole burden and the whole experience, they lose a lot of sense of dignity because time and again, they're made to show the burden of proof is actually on them to show that, how my situation isn't good enough and why I deserve this aid. So the whole experience, actually is very tiring. And, even after they spend time interacting with the social service office, they spend a large amount of time outside just recuperating it, so every time they actually go and apply, it's actually, ripping away their humanity because they as people, they are persevering to be, good parents to their children. They want to spend time working. They want to spend time on themselves. They want to spend time with the spouse, take them out. But because how the social service system is structured to be, something which is very consistent, something which doesn't give out money that easily. There's a huge cost that is incurred. So there's a lot of construction happening. So, okay, now children spend a lot of time in third spaces, and third spaces are extremely vital to the children, like void decks and staircase landings, nearby parks and benches. So third spaces are, areas around their house, which are considered as an extension of their own homes. Because home doesn't actually stop at the grill doors, it actually permeates outwards as well. So it's common to find young children spending time scootering up and down the corridors, using crayons to paint the walls and throwing stuff down, such as food, out of their windows to compare whose stuff gets down fastest. So they're very creative. And while these activities may be called vandalism or killer litter, I like to think of them less as culprits, but more as scientists curious about the world and putting it out there that they exist and the curiosity matters. It needs to be channeled somewhere, anywhere, actually. So during COVID-19, of course, we faced an unimaginable odds, like Ihan was mentioning about billionaires. They became wealthy, but our children, actually, they lost their creativity because they were made to stay inside, and the kids who are very used to being outside, it was a huge reversal on many counts. So you usually find these children, playing inside their home, glued to the handphones, and TikTok and IG videos for a recourse for them. And now we're slowly trying to find a way outside to recover lost ground. It's common to hear that one of the best ways to emerge out of poverty is to learn, receive an education, and hence the state. The government spends huge amounts of resources, such as the Kids Start program by EGDA, the Early Childhood Development Agency under MSF, which ran a 3-year trial from 2016 to 2019 and was expanded in 2019 during the National Day rally to go out for more children. They offer a program for children who are just born till 6 years of age, through home visitation programs, play groups in a community setting, and enhance support to preschools. So they want to closely monitor the child at every stage of life, essentially. And that's what the state perceives as, a success and a successful intervention, essentially. But but significant challenges remain in the learning environment, such as learning gaps, and because there's a lot of heterogeneity in the learning levels in each school grade. Because there are children who may be in secondary too, but they may have a math level of P5, essentially. So there's a huge learning gap that exists. And secondly, COVID-19 has taught us that though in Singapore we aspire to be a smart nation, this term actually applies more to middle-income children and lesser to low-income children, because wide gaps remain in digital accessibility and digital skills dexterity and internet connectivity in these households. Leveling the this education curve isn't as simple and need dedicated programs to take a proactive approach in development. During COVID-19, we had reached out to several FSCs and student centers to check in on their needs, and if we could provide any resources and then we could patch that to them. We realized that there were some FSCs, particularly in the Jurong area, who had planned ahead and worked to get all the children in their community access to laptops through IMDA new PC scheme during the peacetime. And hence, they were not caught short-handed during the pandemic or find themselves rushing to meet these needs. And then hence there needs to be a proactive and not reactive approach to development, where we're not signing kids up or creating programs after symptoms of system stress start appearing. And that aside, I found it deeply disturbing that once IMDA was pushed and under quite a lot of stress during the pandemic, they managed to reduce a lengthy 10-page document for the new PC scheme that avails desktop as well as internet to all families in low-income flats to a mere 2 pages. So it became an 80% reduction in the amount of paperwork that anyone had to do, and which makes us wonder, like, why were they even collecting all these data? Because it seemed quite unnecessary. And another facet is what happens within one's home, right? A 2-room flat is ideal for 3 to 4 persons, given that it's under 50 square meters. And that is the general makeup of most of such households, because many of these households are occupied by elderly. However, at times you find them hosting large families, sometimes as large as 8 persons, and each person having their own neat schedules, and which causes complete chaos. So with that many siblings interactions, it's just not feasible to study in that household, no matter what infrastructure intervention we introduce. These are only technically feasible in smaller households, perhaps with nuclear families with 1 to 2 children, where we can install foldable furniture, for instance, but not for large home personas. And the latter is true for a lot of families because of family compositions like blended families or 3-generational families, among others, living in a rental flat. Thus, I wonder what can be done for these extreme households, and if these community spaces could be revitalized, essentially, for them to use instead of having gated access by RC managers. So when, for instance, there are a lot of community spaces around them, like resident community center itself, so a lot of these actually managed by paid people, right? That the government's paying through the People's Association. So can we actually return the power back to the community, and so that they feel a sense of ownership by having agency to take care of what is around them instead of externalizing services like a market economy. Actually, a lot of these things have been externalized and actually need to be reintegrated back to the community so that people feel a little bit more in control. And I would like to now end off by saying that, yes, it's good to talk about poverty, talk about minimum wage and PWM, but all these conversations need to be contextualized to the environment that individuals are in, without which we would not be speaking to where the impact is actually needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for sharing the actual picture, which many of us might not even realize here in Singapore, and what privileges some of us have while others are striving to reach them. Now,
do we have time for questions?
I was about to offer and ask, and to make sure, one thing I'd like to highlight as well, I am not the only one running this meeting. I need help. And Mei Lim is someone who will be assisting me and us today as the timer as well. So Mei Lim, shall we give maybe, let's say, 7 minutes for question and answers, and you let us know once we reach 45? I believe that there's a yes, even though I couldn't hear you.
Okay. So Peter, if I may just jump in with a question, I know time clock is running out. So Abhishek, thank you so much for sharing, and I am very grateful for your sharing of your insights in this very important space that most of us overlook, right? This underprivileged society. One comment you made that really got me thinking was about how the kids, when put into a natural space, they naturally want to make and keep that space clean and beautiful. But when they're in their own block, in their own building, they would throw things out of the window, they would graffiti on the wall. So this is very starkly different. What is your view of what's causing them to feel that they need to protect nature, but then they can disregard and treat less, damage their own buildings? Is there what's causing that difference in behavior?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and actually there are many layers to this. And first and foremost, when they're living in their own homes, they are expressing their own entire childhood. There are a lot of experiences. As a child, you want to play. You're angry, you're sad. You experience a range of emotions within your own home itself. So home is a place where you're trying to release all that stuff, right? But there's not a lot of avenue to do that, and hence the environment itself, receives the brunt or receives your love or your anger, right, in a way, so to speak. But when the rules of the game are very different in a nature environment where they are told very explicitly that, hey, this is permissible and this is not permissible. And once they actually experience as a group, that everybody's following those particular rules, and they can appreciate that together as well. So the kids are very attuned to, if they see an adult misbehaving or doing something wrong, they'll feel very odd, right? So they don't take double standards at all. Essentially, if as adults we're able to lead in this new environment, they will also learn to interact with the environment in the same way. So as kids, we are introducing them to new places, and we're saying that, okay, this is how you should be. But of course, in this nature environment, they are only there for maybe 3 to 4 hours for a very specific purpose, such as taking photographs or observing nature. So that whole range of emotions aren't expressed in that space. So I wouldn't be so certain to generalize that, they are only calm in this space, but I'm just saying that for the breadth of time, yes, they are. As compared to a rental flat where the whole permissible behavior and the general outlook is that, it's okay to urinate on the staircases, to smoke, to take drugs. It's a place where, generally it's not very safe to walk barefoot in the void there because there are glass shards everywhere. It's just how the environment is perceived by the children is very, very different, and how they feel or think about the environment or want to utilize the environment is very different as well. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody else has any question for Abhishek?
Yes. Just to add to that, I think I'm just assuming that in the home that they have, they may not feel pride in that place, because that is a very complex space with many things, some good and many bad. So they don't feel that sense of joy being in that space. Whereas when they are in nature and they are experiencing that as an outlet where they have a lot of support and people come there to share that space with them in the way that your group has done. So I think they would perceive the nature space as something to cherish.
Exactly.
Maybe that's the big difference.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely, Ash.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Lily, you would like to ask them?
Yes, I have many questions. I'm thinking, I am reflecting of what I heard, and lots of questions come up. So thinking of a body, of a human body, of an organism, and thinking of society and every person as a cell. Yes, like the society is the body and every person is a cell. So these kids are part of us, the body of society. And for a healthy organism, it's important to have flow, like resources. The blood flows to all cells and they are well nourished. And then the body is healthy. If you do not have good nourishment for a group of cells, then for a certain amount of time it's okay, and then you have hypoxia and you have necrosis, you have a problem, can be deadly. So in terms of society, Singapore is very affluent. There are lots of resources. The resources around every person in this country can be plentiful and can be enough. Possibly there are blockages because of the society, the way society is designed now, but this can be changed in time with people like you. And I'm so happy to get to know you through your speech and to meet you here. In your opinion, if there wouldn't be any blockage of resources, think of a body, so there would be a plenty, affluent environment to these kids, which would be like the 2-3 measures in terms of resources that do you think it will make a great impact? So these cells of society will be very helpful and very healthy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way. I think it's all about, as an organism, how do you perceive the environment around you as a threat, or do you feel, very safe? So of course you exude different chemicals and way of being. So specifically to your question, I think foremost what's really needed is a space for the kids to just be themselves, but a space, which can maybe target like different age group of kids as well. Usually, you would see that many of the kids, they usually might fall into bad company, or, they wouldn't really know where to hang out after school, for instance, etc. So they need a holding space where they can just go and maybe just talk to someone, or just be at instead of like finding like 10 or different places, just to hang out till like 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning. More or less what we're maybe saying is that, there's a need for a lot more structure in the lives, maybe a lot more guidance, which is a bit contradictory as well, right? Because as an organism, you would believe that, we all want freedom in our lives and we shouldn't be told what to do all the time. But in this space, it's very surprising that, we always talk about a lot of structure that's needed for the kids themselves. For instance, telling them like how many hours they should be studying or how many hours they should be playing. But I think maybe if we don't want to look at it that way, you can also look at it as like someone who is just there, who has their trust and who can speak the lingo and isn't just there to criticize them. Like if they see a kid maybe smoking when they're 13 years of age, which is quite common in our neighborhoods, maybe it's not just about saying that, hey, smoking is bad. Of course, a kid knows smoking is bad. That's not the way to maybe target them. So I think it's a lot about how we approach these situations and how we create a space where we can have these conversations essentially. So initially I was talking about structure, but maybe it's also about how we converse, how the emotional space that we actually create with the kids as well. So there are multiple parts to this. I guess to layer it down, it's really about love poverty rather than anything else that's really missing in our neighborhoods, where the kids can feel that they can just feel heard, appreciated, loved, paid attention to. I think those are the key things that any kid needs growing up, essentially.
Thank you so much. This is very, very insightful. Can I continue?
Peter, already 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, just a rhetorical question, and then you can answer with few words. Do you think the parents are facing the same issues? Could this be an expression of the nurturing parents, like a lack of nurturing from the parents, because the parents may have the same needs?
Yeah, the parents are always told to go to Skills Future and all these programs to do skills progressing. That's the common narrative. But often at times, all these measures by the government actually only some of them actually get through, because we almost apply a job ceiling for them, that you're only good for like a low skill job. You don't belong to medium skill job, or there's never like a career pathway. It's almost like jumping from one administrative job to another. It's never like, working from supervisor to manager level. It's just doing all this job. So obviously there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of redundancy because, you never know if your job is secure at any one point of time. So more or less, the parents, are spending all their time and effort trying to provide for their families, trying to look at different places. So hence, since all the energy is taken apart to, handle all these stresses, there's hardly a space for them to convey that love, not only to their kids, but also to themselves as a human person. Like, I think self-love is very needed in this space where they can build their sensitivities for themselves towards the environment. Nobody is a bad person. It's really how the environment interact with, turns out, in terms of flowers out.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for sharing, Abhishek, and engaging in the Q&A session as well, unannounced. It is very enriching and eye-opening for many of us, I believe, and there are many more question marks on some of our attendees today. I can see them on their faces, even on mine there's a few. As a suggestion, maybe any further questions, just type them in the chat so Abhishek can do an FAQ and document maybe later on and share it amongst everyone. It might be helpful, and it might open up more opportunities on how we as a human society can approach these situations and contribute to the betterment of children's lives as well as their parents' lives. With that said, we have a new section coming up, which is, I don't know if it's planned by Yihan to share his table topics titled How to Be Privileged, right following up on Abhishek's, or if it's just one of those beautiful moments where we can actually connect the whole meeting into one environment. I will encourage everyone to take up that opportunity, but I pass it over to Yihan to give more insight on that. Yihan, all yours.
Hi, yes, thanks, Peter, and thank you so much, Abhi, for your sharing. And I guess, yeah, this is really following quite well on what you were talking about. So let me share my screen and explain how it will work. Okay. So for today's this meeting's table topics, the theme is about what does it mean to be privileged. Okay, so let's start with a little game. So we all love exams, right? And maybe some of us, it's been some time since we been in such a situation. But I'm sure if you recall it, the emotions will come rushing back. So imagine you are 18, you are taking your very important exam that will determine which university you will go to. Will you get into the top school like Lily? Or will you end up not making it there and having to scrape through with the lower paying jobs? So before you start, the time starts. There's a few things you get to do. You can get 10 more marks, okay, even before you start doing the paper. So imagine you are now 18. Both of your parents are still married. Okay, so add 10 more marks if you have that at the age of 18. Okay, you have access to private tuition. All right, so you could go for tuition classes if you wanted to. You had a family member who could help you with your studies. You entered an elite school because your parent was an alumni. Okay, the fifth one. You did not have to do any part-time or temp work. You could just focus on your studies. Your parents were willing to pay for your university fees, so you can go to any university you want to. You had your own room, so like Abhi said, you had no distractions while you were studying. You never had to skip a meal because you had no money. You had the nutrition you needed. And now you had preschool academic education. So you went to a preschool where you already started learning ABCs before you entered primary school. Okay, so add 10 marks for everything that applies to you. Okay, now anyone has already passed your paper? Raise your hand.
Sorry, pass means what?
You get 50 marks before you even started.
Yes.
Okay, if you have already 70 marks. 80 marks. James, you raise your hand again. Okay, 90 marks.
Ian, can you share the questions again?
Okay. Okay.
So maximum is 90 and 10 for each, and then we have to make our own number, yeah? Add 10 for each plus.
Yes. Anyone has the full 90? Ash, you? Okay. So those with your hands raised up to 90, we are the privileged ones. Because if look at all the numbers here, do any of these actually reflect your own personal effort? But yet they have given us the conditions to be able to excel more in education. And so even before the paper has started, those who have been privileged, isn't it similar to getting 90 marks before we even started putting pen to paper? Yeah, so that's about my sharing.
Sorry, can I see for myself the questions again? I would like to take a screenshot. These questions are very nice. Thank you for thinking and sharing it with us.
Is it this?
Okay, so you shared it, yes. Okay. Wonderful. Thanks, done. Sorry for delay.
Okay. So now it's time for the table topics. We are gonna have a breakout room discussion. Okay, maybe shorter one since we can just do it in pairs.
Samira, you go first.
No, go ahead. You talk.
Okay, sure. Okay, we share about the privileges we have lah. Okay, both of us have the same privileges, which is me is my primary school headmaster, is my uncle. Then Shamira mother is the teacher in her school. Yeah, then so actually it's a pro and con. For us, like for example, for Shamira case, because the mother is a teacher in the school, so she always need to like perform well in the exam, and to ensure that the reputation is Then for me also the same. I have the same problem is that I have one problem is that sometimes I think that even though I'm not the smartest in the class, but I was selected to represent my class or school for competitions. Yeah, I also don't know why. Yeah, I was selected. Yeah. And then another privileges I think I have to share about is this besides school is the work also. Yeah, sometimes it's also related to our education. If you have a good you graduate with a good result with a good certificate, then in the future in the work also you get promoted easily, and then also can get into a better company. This is a privileges for us from a good education then to a good job offer. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, James, for sharing. Wow, didn't know these backdoor secrets. Yeah, and indeed the privileges they build up from education, it continues on into work.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether Shamala will agree that having a mother as a teacher was a privilege.
No, it was not. That is what I told her. It was not a privilege, because we had to prove throughout our life that our results and grades were not because of the mother and we having access to question papers. And again, house and space wise, we had a very small house. So even having access to a good school, being able to go there, being able to actually study, having some space and silence in the home to sit down and study, or even having a table to sit and write is a privilege, isn't it? And so if you start from there all through our life, we have a lot of privileges, things that our kids have not been able to experience or appreciate at all.
Wow. All right. The next question. Oh, meritocracy. Is it fair? Ash or Peter, who would like to share?
I will take the lead as the time was a bit short and Ash was so kind and share what meritocratic society in Singapore is like and what the effect of it is. That every student has the ability based on their cognitive behavior to achieve a certain level and move on to a more prestigious school or prestigious university in that sense. I was posing just now the question to him, what happens, because I observed from the current trend since I'm here in Singapore for nearly 10 years, that families, they like to move into an area just to make sure that their children can access a school, or they at least avoid balloting for a school spot, which is, from my background, where I'm coming from, something never heard of before. I'm originally from East Germany, where every child got an education automatically provided from preschool for free. And it was always not based on where you're living, where you come from, but every child was taken care of and nurtured while the parents were at work. Compared to Singapore, where people moving houses without knowing the cognitive ability of their children already in the first place. And then you look at the less fortunate ones, some of the groups where Abhishek just shared with us, and where the children might have even a higher IQ than some of the more privileged families itself. What happens to those children? What will they go through? Yeah. Now, Ash was sharing, yes, after P6, you still go for the same exam. You still have a fair treatment in that matter. But are you aware that at times children, because of boredom, because of their abilities, of their higher IQ, instead of paying attention and assisting others, they rather disturb the school. They're becoming a nuisance. And when teachers are not picking it up in those less privileged schools, it might even harm them in the future. Is that something that society is really trying to portray or bring across in Singapore? So that's where I leave you with.
Thank you, Peter.
Just if I just jump in, I'm really grateful for Peter to take the ball on this because I was really curious to know his experience comparing from a communist place to a highly meritocratic society like Singapore. And I think he's done a great job in showing the difference. One has a certain heartlessness, while the other has a certain assurance that everybody will get the minimum or get the basic.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've always heard about what communism is terrible, especially in Singapore. They end up in jail, and it's like, oh, the communism has failed. So this is like a different point of view of how like they start to learn about the communist system.
That's meant to be fair, right? Communism is meant to be everyone is treated the same.
And every political system is in that sense. You should be fair to everyone. It's just in a different way on authority and powers, how they're being misused and used. That's why I love.
Can you be fair to someone even if you have like different learning levels? Like somebody who's a little bit more wise and more wisdom, and some people who are not. So if you don't look at wealth, are there other ways of talking about this?
That's why I love Mother Earth Toastmaster Club. There's so many opportunities for discussion. I believe though we might run over time, so I will take that on a separate meeting maybe.
Okay, we can during the break we can talk more. So next breakout room we have Abhi and May, who would like to share.
Ask Abhi to share.
I spoke for very long already. Tired. May, go ahead. I think you had really good.
Abhi believes in equality, so he's already started his
I got a yellow card for you.
Our title is the privilege will perpetuate, right? Ihan?
Yes.
Okay, so we think so because when you are young, you got all the good condition for you. So next time you will have a better future, better career. You can earn more money. But in the end, if your value system is not in place, you always only take care of yourself. Like Singapore, those recently the case like that called SIA, that case. People always when they got money, they always invest in themselves. Then they themselves will be corrupted. So their good luck won't carry on forever. Yeah, that's our view. Back to you.
Interesting, yes. So yeah, saying that privilege, yes, is perpetuated, but at the same time, in a way, it can be its own, cause its own end, because power corrupts and being rich can corrupt you. Interesting. Okay, the final pair, Hui Chin and Lily.
Lily, you want to share?
Okay, so what shall I share about if what was the question? So let me see. So Ihan, can you ask the question again?
How is privilege linked to the environmental movement, and what was your discussion?
Okay, so yes, in principle, the privilege are linked to the environmental movement. Not all of them, but they consume some of these resources. It makes sense for them that some of them become aware that they are over the board with consumption, and they are also educated, so they kind of are tuned with the reality. For the underprivileged, they don't think it's a big issue because they don't see how the consumption is going, and they don't have access to this. Then on the other side, the underprivileged can also be concerned about the environment. And I give my example. So I'm coming from a country where everything was sustainable when I grew up, and then I come here and I enjoyed in the beginning, but then I start to worry because I understand. And the happy life is possible even with less, so no problem. But yes, there is a reason that the privileged are concerned about the environment, because they see how the resources are going, how are spent. They realize it's too much, and they also have the time to be aware. They are not in the survival mode. But it's both ways. Yes. Also, some underprivileged, once they grow up on the have scale, they are also concerned about the environment. But those who are in the survival mode, they can't afford to be concerned about the environment. They can't afford. I mean, the survival takes priority.
Thank you, Lily, for sharing.
Ihan, may I comment on this?
Yes.
So the point is that when you are privileged, then you have the luxury to be environmental. The other side is that when you don't have much, you actually are more environmental because you don't waste.
Yes.
Right? And then when you are privileged, you use more, and therefore your burden or responsibility to be environmental is higher.
Yes.
So I think there's also this element that your responsibility is increased when you have more, because you are creating more waste.
You are consuming more. I gave several details here, like Romania. It's plus, the carbon footprint actually is minus. So we can donate points to the countries like Singapore, who are consuming 3 times more than they should afford, or many times more. So you have the balance there too.
I have an example from the Afghan peace volunteers. So Dr. Hakim, who's a Singaporean doctor who spent 10 years in Afghanistan, I spoke to him earlier this year, and he was saying that he runs this thing called Afghanistan Peace Volunteers, where from a war-strewn country, right, all the youths in their early 20s, they are looking at renewable energy and forming these links across, different cities within Afghanistan itself, of, different kinds of youth who want a more peaceful transition after Afghanistan stabilizes itself. So instead of a very Maslow hierarchy of needs, where where you usually think that a stressed person isn't able to actually talk about higher education or environmental affairs, we have seen evidences, very strong evidences of higher aspirations in human beings, even in a resource-strained environment. Yeah.
Thank you, Abhi, for sharing. Yeah, so thank you everyone for very interesting table topics. And now thank you. Now I hand the time back to Peter.
Thank you so much for your participation as well. And please give Yihan another big round of applause, because that kind of format is something very unique to Mother Earth and the Toastmaster elite, I would say, in Singapore, the Toastmaster privileged ones, and something very valuable. These discussion points are important for everyone. Now, even though he's a passionate parent and a disillusioned seeker of truth, he can't believe himself that he's giving his icebreaker. Please welcome.
Peter, before that, may I share the peer evaluation, how it works?
All right. Sorry, I was about to skip that. No, never mind. Okay, you want to do it? Go ahead. Please. I can do that as well. I was about to go into that matter.
Oh, you wanted to cover that?
Yes, no problem.
Oh, okay. First, I prepared some slides.
Much better. Look how prepared Yihan is. Go for it, please. What is anticipated today?
Okay, so this is a new idea that we are trying out, which is to let everyone have a chance to practice giving constructive feedback and to actively listen. So as a speaker, it's also not just to speak, express yourself, but to listen actively the feedback that you get. So this is the format. So how we can give our feedback, one way which Ash always likes to recommend is to give at least 1 star and 1 wish. So a star is one thing you like, and a wish is one thing you wish could have been done differently in terms of like yourself. So if the person was maybe mumbling, instead of saying, "Oh, I wish you didn't mumble," say like, "Oh, I wish I could have heard you more clearly." Yeah. Well, of course, if the person is asking like, "Okay, what do you mean?" then you can give more details. But it's always with respect to our personal experiences. And that's why anyone can give feedback, because we all have our own personal experience from how we hear the speech. And the ways that we can give feedback can be like in terms of clarity or purpose. That was the main, how did I manage to identify the main idea, message, or call to action? Clarity of language. Could I understand the spoken language? Was the pace comfortable for me to follow? Were the visual aids easy for me to read? And then credibility. Did the supporting arguments make sense to me? Was the speaker trustworthy? Was I convinced? And also postulars. Was it making me feel like, oh, this speaker is not sure of himself? Organization. Was it easy to follow? Did the points flow logically? Engagement. Did I feel engaged? Ooh. Or was I drifting off? Was the eye contact or that effective? Stories, rhetoric, was it effective in bringing me into the speech? And finally, connection, the emotional part. Could I relate to the speaker or the message? Did I feel the speaker cared about me? And how did I feel? So, oops, okay, this time we'll do it differently this time because we have a small group. So, after the pre-prepared speeches, the idea is we all have a chance to give feedback, including the speakers, and we'll see how much time we have left, and then we'll allocate accordingly. Will that work?
And just to jump in, thank you for using this method. It's not created by me. I learned it from Gemma. And Gemma is one of the most empathetic speakers I've ever seen. And in her rule, it is 2 stars and a wish. So you want to make one so-called criticism, you have to give 2 positive before you can give 1 bad. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope we can all apply that with 2 stars and 1 wish for our speakers once we go to the evaluation section. So everybody, not only speakers, also everyone else, please pay attention to what they are sharing with us today, and provide them and learn how to provide constructive feedback after that for all of us.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ash, with Reinventing Me. Reinventing Me, Ash, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. You are so correct. This speech is one of the most difficult speech for me to prepare. How can I introduce myself to a group of people who I've regarded as family for the last 4 years? What can I say to you, right? But in preparing today's speech, it gave me the impetus to reflect over my journey with the club. And I think today what I'd like to share with you is how I first got into the club. So I'm not sure if all of you know that story. And then how the club has helped me grow as an environmentally conscious person. And then the third part of this speech, I want to share how this year, with all that COVID has thrown at us, it had given me an opportunity to pivot slightly out of my environmental space, which I'm obviously very passionate about, into this social justice space. So the experience I had working with Abhishek on the SG Gratitude Pack, where we were trying to make a difference to the migrant worker community. And then at the end, I'd like to summarize by sharing my view of how I see both this environmental movement and the social justice movement having a common thread. Okay, so let me begin by first telling you how I got myself into this club, right? So actually, I'm not new to Toastmasters, and I have a title called CTM. So most of you will not even know what that is, but if you are long enough in the movement, you'll know that it stands for Competent Toastmaster. So 20 years ago, and I'm sure May would know this term, and I can see her smiling already. So I actually first got involved with Toastmasters more than 20 years ago. At that time, I was a young, up-and-coming professional who believed that communication was key. So your written communication, your speaking communication was key. So I really wanted to improve my speaking skills, and I joined Toastmasters. And I completed my Toastmasters quite quickly, I think within a year. And then I moved on because I knew that speaking was about how I use that skill in my life, right? And I never looked back. But then 20 years later, I started looking for a club. And this time was not for me, it was for my son. So those of you who have seen Aiden speak, it was me as a father realizing that my son was very passionate, had very interesting ideas, and he had the gift or the passion to want to share those ideas. And I knew the Toastmasters could provide that platform. So I committed to finding a club where I could bring Aiden to. But it was not easy at all. Most Toastmasters clubs had a very strict 18 and above rule, and many of them were not really open to children. But then, of course, I stumbled upon Mother of Toastmasters, and what left a strong impression on me was that this was a very inclusive group of people who gave the young an equal stand, equal voice in the club. So regardless of how young you are, you had an equal voice to this topic of the environment, because the young would literally have to bear most of the challenges that the climate crisis would create. And so we felt very, very welcome. And then this was the place that I decided that I would invest my time with. Mainly initially was so that I could give Aiden that platform to develop his speaking skill. So that was my motivation. But since then, working in the environmental space also, so for those of you who do not know, I actually run a business that does smart metering. So we help businesses measure their electricity and water consumption with the aim to help them be more, to save water and save electricity. So it's always been an area of mine. So, but that is run as a business. And here I had a group of friends who lived that philosophy. So before Toastmasters, I was really a businessman trying to make money from this trend, right? But having the chance to meet so many very inspiring people who I could learn and I could be inspired to make the change in my own life. And so that's how Mother of Toastmasters really moved me to make the changes in a deeper way and not just business angle. And this year, and the third point is how COVID changed everything for everyone, right? So really, I had many things that to change, and an opportunity came along where Singapore was giving out the fun packs, National Day fun packs to Singaporeans. So as an environmentally conscious person, this was something that I could not swallow. I felt a lot of rage, a lot of this frustration that this was what my country was going to do, such a waste in a time of such need. So I felt very strongly that I needed to reflect this frustration to the government that we should not have this fun pack. But then it started as a frustration, but along the way, the idea morphed into the SG Gratitude Pack. So instead of saying I don't like this, we changed that idea into saying that since I'm now having this fun pack, let me do something meaningful. Let me give this to someone who I want to express my gratitude for. And so we morphed this frustration into something very beautiful called the SG Gratitude Pack. And over that period, we reached out to over 2,500 packs. So there were more than 2,500 packs that were donated, and we gave them to the migrant workers, and it made such a big impact. And the last part I want to share is why I see the difference or the similarities between the social justice movement, which is migrant workers, versus environment. So both comes from a very strong desire to right a wrong. So strong justice, right? But what is more valuable, is my experience, that both comes from a very strong empathy, a ground of empathy. We feel that this trend is hurting someone that we feel deserves our protection, whether it's climate change for children or the migrant workers being treated poorly. So I really feel strongly that the link between all these causes is this feeling for fairness, justice, but driven by empathy. Thank you. Did I make it?
James Pong will share some of his personal experience today in his second project of level 2 innovative planning, which is 5 to 7 minutes long. Can we just see at 5 minutes, it will be the green card. At 6 minutes, you will get the yellow. And at 7, you will get the red one. And once you reach your time, James, I will also put May on the spotlight as well next to you.
Sure.
So keep your eye on the screen, yeah? Please welcome James with A Fairer Society. A Fairer Society, James.
Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone. Okay, once I saw this title, right, then I think about myself, and for me that I have this I know that there's a double standard since I was kids. You know, I guess what, I'm the one of the this lucky one. When I was a kid, right, my relative, when they visit me, they buy a bigger, faster remote control car to me compared to my second brother. He got a smaller, slower remote control. Yeah. Then my brother go to ask my uncle, you know, why Gogo get a bigger and faster remote control car? Then the uncle replies saying that I think if I recall correctly, is that because I'm a good boy. I'm we call this I study hard. Then and now I recall back is that if you get someone like favor you, then you always get better things. You got the abilities to have you call receive different big better thing compared to your peers. And these things not only stop at my young age. Then when I go to primary school, I found another thing is that besides the double standard is peerages, because like what I mentioned just now, the primary school that I went to is the headmaster is my relative, is my uncle. So that some of the teacher, I think a few teachers know that me and my headmaster is the relative. So I got a better flavor in many things, like including represent class, represent school for competitions, and I was selected as a few clubs, societies. Yeah, so I really think that at that time at my age, I was like I don't think about that this is called privileges and double standard. I would just take the position and and enjoy myself. But now I reflect that this is really privileges to me, and then these privileges also bring something to we call advantages to me, like what Yihan just mentioned just now. It may also make me go into a better college, and then at the end also this better school also lead me to a better job. This is already a privileges to certain group of people, like I'm the one, like lucky one. And I also like want to say this thing not only stop at my primary school. I like, because when I go into this university, my I join a few these competitions that represent my school, for the hackathon and competition for coding. Then I have a close relationship with my head of department, we call it head of school. And one day Microsoft was they was looking for a Microsoft student partner from my school. Then as the first come, because the first person that will get into contact with the head of department, then he just recommended me. He put me as a recommended students. So at that time, there's a few, and I know there's a few guys that also want to like compete with me to get this position as a Microsoft student partner. The advantages of this position is that I will get all the Microsoft products on hand first, and also it's all free of charge. Then because of my close relationship with my head of department, I also selected as a Microsoft student partner for my university. And this one also make me lost two of my close friends, because they think that I playing politics or backstab them in my head department. That's why they so called that they don't like me. They try to avoid me on certain events. Then I'm not invited to some of the birthday parties. Yeah, and then for that time, what I also think about, this is there's always a pro and con of this so-called privileges that I have. Then even though that time, and guess what, because of my this good relationship with my teacher also, because in order to represent school for competitions, I need to work with we call this we need to consult some of the lecturers for our competitions program or teams, something like that. So I also make very close with my lecturers. Then because of this thing, it also need me to like get a very good result for my projects, because I like to talk to lecturers to like how to improve my assignments, how to get better marks. And then at the end, guess what, I graduate with a second top place during my cohort. And then this also showed that one thing, even though I'm a lecturer favorite and my head of department favorite, other students, they have a chance to become a top student of the school. And then now, after a few years from graduation, we meet together for we call this our course meet up lah. Then there's a few guys that even though they did not get a very good result during the final year project or during the normal exam, now they are really doing a good job. They managed to like find good job, also managed to create something what they want in their life. So from that day onward, I really think that we need to like have a even though like we know that we enjoy the privileges, we also need to like keep on hardworking, because this learning never stop. If you stop learning, even though we have all the privileges we're receiving, we also will be standing there, no improvement at all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, James, for your speech and sharing with us how important interpersonal relationships actually are. And sometimes they can break or make changes in your life positively. With that said, we have reached the end of the prepared speaker segment. For purposes of the speaker to understand their challenges, may I ask Mei Lim to give the timing sequence for all of them?
Ash, 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Didi, 13 minutes and 30 seconds. James, 8 minutes.
Thank you so much, May. And I could even hear Yihan in the other room laughing when Lily doubled her timing, allocated time. Okay, now we go to a segment which is something new in Toastmasters in general when it comes to evaluation. It's a practice though which is very important for all of us. And we're trying to improve not only speaking and presenting, but also how we can effectively communicate and provide so-called criticism or constructive feedback to the speakers itself. Our first speaker today, Ash, was speaking for 6 minutes, 30 seconds for his icebreaker speech, Reinventing Me, which was allocated 4 to 6 minutes. In the interest of 2 stars and 1 wish, I would like to ask everyone to just give just 20, 30 seconds feedback for Ash on what did you enjoy, what you really benefited from, and where you could see some more moments of improvement. To facilitate that, just raise your hand, raise your cup, be digitally savvy, put a funny pause on your video if you can, and let me know who's going first. Who would like to go first? Okay, Shamila. Don't forget to unmute.
I usually don't talk in these sessions, but then this time it was evaluation for everyone. Ash, I think if I have to give 2 stars, the passion and empathy with which you spoke really brings about your thought process and shows your passion for both Mother Earth as well as your children and family. The second one was I noticed that you used the space effectively. This is something that was done by our, I think he was an evaluator last time. He was leaning into the camera and I could see you doing that. And that actually brought through your message a lot. And then because I didn't have anything else to do, in terms of what negatives am I going to bring about, I did the R counting. I realized there was no R counter. So you have comparatively less as compared to when you were the Toastmaster, but there were at least 10 Rs, 2 double clutch, and 23 okay, so right. Most of them were so's. There were about 20 so's, and then there were okays and rights there. That's me.
Thank you, Shamila.
Thank you, Shamila, for sharing with us. And now I need to be aware of my R's and Ums as well, which I wasn't expecting earlier.
No, unfortunately, I didn't do it for you.
Fortunately, I appreciate it. Anybody else like to add something for Ash and how he can work on presenting himself more effectively? Don't be shy. It is your chance. Yes, Ihan.
Okay. Yeah, Ash, I was really touched that even the first few sentences that came out already were almost brought tears to my eyes. So yeah, I felt like there was really something very authentic, even by you saying like, I mean, like you have all these good friends and all that. And I really love how you had this framework with the 3 points, which you outlined first and then you went into detail. So it was like very structured. So it was very easy for me to follow. And what I wish I could have learned more would be about you and your feelings. Because I know this is, you are someone who is very open-hearted. So I felt like the speech, I was engaging very much at the intellectual level, and I wish I could have connected more at the emotional level. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ihan, for sharing. HC, can you maybe share a little bit as well of what your experience about Ash's speech was like? Sorry if I don't know your full name.
I'm Hui Chin.
Breaking.
I'm not exactly sure what to share. Yeah.
Consider yourself today as the appointed evaluator last minute, and you need to speak about Ash's icebreaker speech.
I'm not sure, totally blank.
Okay, we have all those moments. Again, this is a pilot project seen here at Mother Earth. Don't worry about it. But I believe it will occur more often throughout your journey as well with Mother Earth as Toastmaster.
Yep, all right, thanks.
Anybody else like to share a little bit for Ash?
Yeah, me?
Yes, James. Fantastic.
Okay, Ash. When I hear your ice breaking, that this is a really, I can feel that this is a true story, and then you're from your deep from your heart, and then also I can feel that you already like love our club. Yeah. And what I want to like see more is that I also agree with Yehan is the emotion. Maybe you can have a they call it a different maybe it's like your, I think because Zoom right further away, so we can't see the emotion of Ash. Yeah, the facial emotion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, Ash, you received so many praises already on your speech. Let me give you a little slap. Because something, and this slap goes for every speaker, I'll take it in advance. Visualize your points. Bring them across through visual aids and substantiate. Sometimes we don't need to have a PowerPoint presenting some of your points, what you're talking about, but make your appearance stand out through a very effective introduction. Yeah, don't just give a few lines. Lily was quite effective, leading towards her speech a little bit. But Ash, you can take these, what you're going to speak about, how, those three hows, put them into the introduction, give the MC that chance to highlight what you're talking about, so you don't have to ask for time, and you can bring in those emotions, these scenes of acting out, and those sceneries, these beautiful sceneries with you, when you also engage your son to speak more and to develop himself more as well, gives you more opportunities to speak. Same as for James and Lily. Use the chance by giving yourself introduction in advance, way more in advance, based on your speech topic. That's my little slap I have for everyone. And with that said, I would like to move on to Lily's speech. Who would like to give some feedback on Lily? Don't mention the timing. We are aware of it, and Lily, I guess, so very passionate about it. Anybody would like to go first? Jamila?
Yeah, no one wants to go, looks like. So the our counter goes, huh?
Look at those guys.
Passion to peace. We could see the passion, not the peace. I think Lily should not do any icebreaker speeches that are less than 5 or 6 minutes. She's more slated towards a keynote speaker kind of a speech, because she has a lot to say, a lot to give, and she just can't stop herself, which is very nice. She was also, as I said, very passionate, but very collected as well. When there was a sudden disruption of her mom calling, she took it in her stride, explained what it was, and then continued with the speech without any nervousness or any break there. From an R counter, not exactly an R counter, but there were about 5 so's and 8 ums. There was one repetition at the beginning where she was starting off and then she stopped and repeated herself. The only thing that I noticed hugely was there were 62 ands. And I still let a few pass, thinking they were part of the speech, and there was no way she could have said something without them. But otherwise, maybe 70 plus. So the ands is something that you need to worry about or be aware of, really.
Thank you so much, Jamila, for that report and observation. It is very important that, especially as a non-native speaker, we tend to connect sentence after sentence after sentence when it's not necessary. Yeah. And it's something we can really learn from. Anybody else would like to share a little bit for Lily? Yes, Ash.
So Lily, this was one of the most precious speeches for me in how you revealed so much of yourself. So I really want to thank you for being so open, so candid, so raw, and we could definitely feel that connection. I think because you trust the space that we have here, that you were able to share all of these stories. So I'm really grateful for having this, being here today. I think even though the group is small, your speech made today completely worth for me. So thank you so much. I also wanted to comment that in this story, I like how you broke it down to the 3 stories, the nun, the child, and what's the third one?
The light.
The light, okay. So I like that you had those 3 frames, and then although your story was a long one, but you gave us those 3 milestones for us to keep track of where the story was moving. So that was a very good choice. Where I wish I saw more of, and this one I can't really follow the 2 stars and a wish, but what I wanted to share was when you use the word passion, what you really meant was when you're passionate about something, you are prepared to suffer for it, right? So that I thought there's a lot of wisdom in that phrase. When people talk about passion, we normally think that it's fun, it's joyous, but something becomes a passion only when you're prepared to sacrifice for it. So I think the choice of the word passion and the explanation of suffering was a little bit unclear, or was maybe not so smooth, but I got what you meant in the end. Okay. And if I may just leave with one more remark, which is nothing to do with your speech, but I thought I wanted to share a bit of my own story. When I was trying to write this speech, I wanted to tell you something unique about me, right? And the other idea I had, which I didn't choose to go down that path, which is completely what you were going to share about. Okay, so I just wanted to just say that it's so perfect timing. So I wanted to tell you about my name, and Shamala may be able to confirm this, but my name has a meaning, which I never realized that meaning until very much later in my life. So I'm Indian, but I'm also half Indian, half Chinese. So I never really understood my Indian culture until very, very late. And when I was told that my name actually means the one who has gone past suffering. And then it made so much sense to me that there is a lot of peace that comes when you have gone through pain, but that peace comes when you hold compassion. So when you go through suffering, you can easily end up very bitter, very hardened, and very close, but there will be no peace there. So then when I understood my name, and I realized that there is a place that you can get to when you go past suffering, and that place is a place of peace, but you need to remember that it can only be open if you have compassion, and you're full of compassion, not of pain and bitterness. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I don't know why, but this was the other story I was going to share. Luckily, I didn't share that because I think yours is so much better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ash, and I'm pretty sure Lily also appreciates all the feedback received so far. Anybody else would like to add something? Maybe Joseph? Just for you to, I'm just bringing you on the spot, and up to date, we're doing a peer evaluation for every speaker. So you can learn from everyone what they're sharing about the speaker itself.
I only heard the last part of Ash sharing, so
correct.
I think I'm in a good position to comment much.
Understood, but good to join in even at last moments. It's always important to self-development as well. Anybody else like to share something about Lily's speech? Yes, Jehan?
Yeah. So yeah, Lily, I really love your stories. How you brought it to life. I've heard like so many of your stories before, and it's really I just go with you in your journey, and it's like, well, I can feel what you're going through. And yeah, as always, like very genuine and authentic, and yes, can really like feel your love for us, that you want us to be at peace. So really thank you for that. My wish would be like you talked about the title was Passion and Peace, and I really love how the first story talked about the two contrasts, how we can find peace in the even in times of conflict. However, at the second and third stories, I started to get lost. I couldn't really come back to this passion and peace theme. Yeah, so I was hoping that I could really go deeper into that. Actually, I thought you were going to talk more about like your struggle with the vaccine thing. So yeah, that's my comments.
Thank you so much. And that's maybe a idea for Lily to shorten her speech next time, where she picks and chooses just one story, correct, to make it more effective and build a series throughout your journey as well. Please join now in providing some feedback for James and his speech on how he may have overstepped unintentionally some of his friends and university buddies, but at the same time build valuable relationships, personal relationships with people who can bring you forward and move you in the right direction. Anybody would like to go? Yes, Ash.
So, James, I have seen you speak from the beginning and now, and I want to just commend you. I felt very connected in your sharing today. I could see that it was speaking from the heart, and you were telling us stories of your life that were very true, very real. So I want to just commend that you had no notes and you were talking directly with us. So this was really to me a significant milestone that you need to celebrate. All right. Second point that I want to say that I really liked was your message. So your message about how even though you may have the favor of people and you got a privilege as a result of that, you still need to do the work, right? So you don't just get a free ride. At one point, that free ride would need you to really carry yourself with your own effort. So I thought that was a really precious message from your speech. So good job on that. What I wish I could have seen was also a degree of confidence that as much as I know you, you are one of the most hardworking person who always put in the effort. But in the speech, I get the sense that you may have felt that you got more of a free ride than you deserved, which maybe at the big, if that was the design of your speech, then I may have misunderstood it, and you had done a very good job in making us feel that you felt bad. But I didn't feel that was really you, because I know that you have always come across as someone who would be very eager to take extra effort. And so they didn't feel that was, it felt that you were underselling yourself. So I felt that I would have liked to see you maybe not beat yourself up so hard. But if that was your design, that means you wanted us to feel that, yeah, I had a free ride for too long. Then yeah, well done.
Thank you so much, Ash, for sharing your insights into James' story and your understanding. Jamil, any ahs and ums for James?
Maybe I should give the star out first. But then Ash has said most of it. But I was definitely been watching James talk since the beginning as well, and felt this was a very honest acceptance of the fact that he had the privilege. Again, like Ash said, I'm not sure whether this was the original content of your speech or whether you reflected on the table topic queries that Ihan put up saying this would constitute privilege, and that was brought into your speech. So either way, if you reflected on that and brought it in, then again, kudos to changing your speech last moment. When it comes to the repetitions, etc., I think there is, if you can put in a little bit more practice, you had 49 us. So Ihan was asking how many hours from everyone, but you had an So every time you pause, you have an and there were about 49 of them. You also have a lot of yeah, and the double clutch where you are saying the same thing again, I think, etc. 17 double clutches, 12 yas, and I probably missed a few because there were so many. Surprisingly, there were only 2 so's and 3 you knows. But again, there were a few others which were mix and match, and then I just let them go because they didn't fall into any category per se. But again, I think if you write it down and then practice a little bit, you can cut down on these considerably.
Great. Thank you so much, Jamila. And yes, and ams are very important. Sometimes they help us build our thought process and continue our speech, and sometimes they're hindering us. So it's really good to have them and not to have them at the same time. Lily, do you have any feedback for James maybe? Or Yihan?
Lily, do you want to share?
Burn my minutes. I love you, James. Thank you so much for sharing such a personal story and share from the heart. All good, all stars. Share more. Yes. One suggestion, it's good to prepare. And a good project means you write it, you know what you're going to say, and you know how long it's going to take. You see if you're okay with the content, and then you practice the delivery. So if you really want to go by the book, it's better to deliver it than to watch yourself. And then this is the way you learn most, because you are the most, the worst, the best critic. That's it. Thank you very much for all your sharing and for all your support and for being here with us always. Love you.
Thank you, Lily. And Yihan, some words of wisdom to add?
No wisdom, just my own opinions. Yeah. Yes, as mentioned, really the stories, wow, they came, they were really relatable. It's like very down to earth, like stories that you share. And yeah, it's I felt it was a kind of a self-depreciating style, and like so the humor, it was like kind of something that allowed me to really connect with you. Yeah, like the way you allow yourself to be vulnerable to show that, oh, okay, I got some advantages. Yeah, that allowed me to connect with you. What was my wish? Oh, no wishes. Okay. Maybe one wish is like from the personal, you talk about your personal viewpoint, maybe one wish would be how you could expand it towards society, the broader view of society, like a commentary about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time for Mother Earth Toastmaster Club to have a peer evaluation. It is fantastic that we have such a small group to make it more interactive. In a bigger environment, we would be broken up into different rooms and then come together and have the speaker share the feedback they received on that matter. Nevertheless, I hope it will expand in that sense, because it will help everyone on both sides, on the giving and the receiving end. With that said, my task has been completed for this evening. I do hope that you had enjoyed your time with us at Mother Earth Toastmaster Club. And I will hand over for the closing address to the president and Yihan.
Thank you, Peter. And just a round of applause, everyone, for such a beautiful session, sharing from the heart. Yeah, not much to add. It's a kind of overtime. We wanted to shorten it, but looks like the conversation just flowed very naturally when we are together, which is great. Yes, one would like to ask one thing, which is since this is our first time doing the peer evaluation, is there any thoughts about this, especially in relation to the usual way we give evaluation?
I like the idea very much. I think what would have been even more powerful was if there was this opportunity for us to reflect and then the speakers describe their takeaways. I think that would be very, very nicely closing the loop in learning. Yeah.
Peter has to take his leave. And yes, if anyone
thank you very much, Peter.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care. Goodbye. Take care.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
Peter.
night.
Night.